Okay, so I cut the top away from the bottom, and that's what we have right now. So I need to put a top on it. So I've cut this out, piece of sterling silver, and we're gonna solder that top portion onto the top sides. So let me get set up and I'll bring you back when I'm ready to solder. Okay, so I fluxed it, put solder chips all around the outside, and now I'm ready just to blow the solder. As always, we try to get the bigger piece, which is going to be the top of it, warm first. And as I always say, that at first you're going to have some solder that jumps around on you. But that's easy to replace. So just go slowly, heat up the whole piece. Now it's flowing, and you can see it flowing. Bring it in the inside, and you'll see it, the lighter silver come right into the inside, and we're done. So now we'll put that into the pickle, clean it up a bit, and I'll be back. Okay, so the top is soldered onto the sides. It looks good. Now we want to cut it away. Saw off the excess. And I didn't show you this before, and I did want to just give you one pointer. When you do this, you want to get as close as possible to the edge, but don't go too close. What happens sometimes is when you're naturally doing this, you're trying to keep it up straight, but you're always a little bit towards this side. And if you get really close, what you're going to do is you're going to cut into the silver just above where this side is, and you're going to have to adapt something to make that right, either by putting a bevel on the edge or something like that. But for this box, I just want it to be nice and flat. So don't get too greedy when you're sawing away your excess, because you can get yourself in trouble there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do this, and I'll bring you back when it's done. Okay, so that's all been cleaned up, and should mate to the box pretty well. Sometimes it mates so well you don't know which side is the proper side, and that's the way it should be. I mean, it could go like this. Was that originally the way it went? Or was it originally like this? And it's very hard to tell. I can get some clues by looking at the corner, and I like to keep it that way. So this is the way it was originally. Now we need to now we need to make a pressure fit closure. So what I'm going to do is take some sterling silver bezel wire and try to match it as best as possible to the top of the inside of the box. So you can measure it by eye, or you can use calipers, but calipers is great for the first one. It's not so good for each additional one, unless you're taking into account the width and of the metal. And I'm looking for my scribe right now. There it is. Everything's right on the table if you want it. So I'm just going to make a little mark. You're not going to see this because my hand's in the way. Right there. And we will bend that at a 90-degree angle. So right at the mark, bend it. Should be 90 degrees. Check it out. That looks good. And then we work around to the next side. Make a mark. You want this fitting tight too, by the way. So, right there at the mark. I actually like that I have to really cram it in there. Don't want it to be smaller. This looks like it's a little, we'll have to work on that. So the last one right here, put a mark where you want it. And make our 90-degree bend. And I'm going to cut it off. We can adjust these, so I'm going to cut it off just on this side of this thing, because this goes all the way to the edge. So if I overlap that, then it wouldn't fit. So just actually, you can have this help you a bit. Cram it in there, and we're going to adjust this, so don't worry. We're going to adjust it a little bit. It's a little finicky right now. All right. Okay, so now we have our sterling silver bezel that should fit in here nicely. You can see that right here needs a little adjusting. Which is no problem. We can do that. And what I do is I go right at the corner with my flat pliers, and just adjust it just a little bit, Now that might mean I need to that's going to fit in there nicely. There we go. So there it is, and we need to solder that up. So let me get ready for that, and I'll bring you back. Okay, so we fiddled a little bit more, but got that so that it fits very nice, snug up against the all the sides. And now we need to solder these two pieces together. That's not it's not actually that easy. There's many ways you can go about it, and I'm certainly not sure what is the best way. So I'm going to go with my old standard sort of sweat solder. So we're going to flux this, put on a couple solder chips that are easy flow. Now these solder chips are also going to make it a little tighter, so we're going to have to maybe sand it down a little bit, or just like squeeze it in there. So all I want to do is just flow this just a little bit. Yeah, that's perfect. Now they look like blobs, and they are blobs, but let's see if we can't do two sides at a time and pickle it and go to the... Oh, see, now I forgot what side I flowed my solder onto, so... Okay, it's the bottom side here, so that needs to be the same on this part too. So add the soft solder. And just heat it up, just so it rounds up and flows. That's good enough. And I'm going to do the other two sides and come back and we're squeeze it in there and solder them together. Okay, so I've put solder blobs on the bottom of all sides here, and I've checked the fit, and it doesn't seem like I have to sand it, so that's good. So the next step is to flux the sides of our sidewalls of our box top here, and then reinsert it. And that's good. This one wants to spring. Wants to spring down away from the wall. Maybe we can take it out and make it not want to do that. All I did was give it so that it would want to push into the wall rather than away. All right, looks good. Now, here's a trick. You can bed this into your soft block, and then just apply heat from the top, the sides. Which is what we will do. Problem is you won't know when it flows, but it'll flow pretty quickly, and I think we'll get it right. Probably just go overboard a little bit, which will actually give us fire scale, but we'll take care of that in later stages. And the top actually is going to be all covered by the stones, so there is a little fire scale there. It will never show. So I'm just heating my piece. Heating the sides. Now I don't want to go crazy because like I said earlier in the video, you don't want to start sucking away the solder from your previous seams. I think that's done actually. We can check it. If I had a pair of tweezers that I could check with. Oh yeah, perfect. Look at that. Okay, so quench and then pickle, and I'll be back. Here's our box, our lid. Our closure's a little bit loose. So what I will do is take a burnisher and actually push over the edge a little bit so it sits out a little bit more. Doesn't take much. And if I have to come back, I might have to bring it in a little bit, but you can adjust it both ways so that it fits nice and snug. Unfortunately with this box, that's nice. It's nice and snug. But unfortunately with this box, it only closes one way. It should close both. It was made perfectly, but it's not machine made. So I can't get it to close this way. But it's obvious it closes nice this way. Good snap. Nice little box. So what's next? We need to put our stone on top. There's our Labradorite. So we'll need to make a bezel for that. And I can use the same sterling silver that I used before. And to make this bezel, it's pretty easy. It's a square bezel. So you can just basically go around the piece and then fit them together and solder it just like I've shown many times on many other stones. So I already did that. Here's our bezel. Fits nice. It's going to be right up next to the edge. Fits both sides nicely. Right up next to the edge on soldering it. So we're soldered from the inside, and that'll be pretty much it. Then it's just turning over the bezel, calling it a box. I think it's gonna look quite nice. It's yeah, pretty tall stone, but I think it works. The one thing that is going to be informative is when you do the bezel, you do have to worry about the corners. They're not easy on these square types cabochons, so I'll show you that. So what I'm going to do now is just get ready to solder it onto the top. I'll bring you back for that, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we're going to do for the corners of the stone. Okay, so I'll see you then. Okay, so we're ready to solder the bezel onto the top of the box. And the only thing here you need to be, well, two things you need to be concerned with is one is the bottom of the bezel is nice and flat, so sand that really good and make sure that there's no light coming in from below the bezel. And the other thing is to make sure that you have it nicely centered on your top of the box. It is right up next to the edge, so you have to be very careful. If it goes over, you're kind of in trouble. So I'm looking at that carefully, and yeah, and you also want to make sure that you don't move it when you're soldering it. So let's get to it. heat up the bottom box because the bezel itself will heat up very quickly. And in the middle, because that is where the bulk is. So take your time. Don't concentrate at all on the solder bits just yet. Move them you have to, and see, this is why you have to be careful too, because you don't want this moving. If it does, just reposition it. Okay, so okay, I think I got it. Looks good. You can see that the solder is all flown around on all sides. And so we'll put that in the pickle. And we'll be off to the last step, which is setting the stone. Okay, so before I set the stone, I want to give this box a matte finish. So first thing you do is you polish it. And then you give it a matte finish, because you always want to start off with a nice smooth surface. And so I'm going to use the red wheel. Satin finish. So let me bring it back over to the bench and I'll set it now. Okay, so now we're going to set this nice Labradorite square stone into the top of our box. The only thing here that you have to worry about is the corners are a little tricky to push over when you're setting a cabochon like this. And one of the ways around that to make it easier is just to file little notches in each one of the corners. That will give it some relief so it won't buckle out. And so just use like a triangle file or one of those small straight files and do that. So next I'm just going to put this in here and let me get set up for pushing over the bezel, and I'll get right back to you. Okay, so we're ready to push over the bezel. So we're just pushing it over best we can. See, when you're doing this, especially on like delicate stones, this one's not too delicate. You can go like this, and you'll leave a mark in your stone. So that's why I use these things. And again, we'll go around. Because this side is so much lower, the corner of it went in more. And again, we might want to mess around with our white wheel for that. Make it look a little nicer. It's not really, unless you really customize the bezel for the exact stone, which you can and probably should a lot of times, or you have a really perfect stone, and all the dimensions, you're going to have issues like that. But there's our box. It's a nice little square box. I don't know about square, but rectangular box with a stone on top. The stone pretty much takes up the whole surface at the top, so it's kind of cool. And it's a nice, you know, it's a nice, I like Labradorites. Give you a nice color. There's a lot you can do with them. I once made a, you know, butterfly, or it could have been moth wings with this type of stone, and made it look really, really nice. So that's it for this video. I might adjust this a little bit and adjust this corner because I'm not sure how much I like it, and bring it back for a final. Probably not. I'll just adjust it and show you the picture in the thumbnail of the video. Okay? Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again. Bye.